Hi, I'm Amanda Park, and this is Government's Role in Education. First of all, hello. Please allow me to introduce myself. You will see here most of my family is all in these pictures, and my children, my husband. So, my husband and I have been married for about a year and a half. We got married in Athens, Greece. My husband is active duty Army, and we are avid Chiefs fans. We try to attend as many games as possible. We have 4 awesome kids. We have a almost 14-year-old. Her name is Dakota, an 8-year-old named Houston, a 6-year-old named Natalie, and an almost 3-year-old named Asher. You'll see in the pictures there that Asher was actually almost 14 weeks early, and that was quite the adventure. He was NICU for 85 days, and my husband was still in Germany, so it was quite the adventure. You'll also see in the lower right-hand corner, my husband and I love to travel. It's one of our favorite things to do, and we've tried to do as much as we can. So, in my personal life, very family oriented. I grew up in Augusta. I was born in Alamogordo, New Mexico, because I was an Air Force brat. And I went from being an Air Force brat, both my parents in the Air Force, to now an Army wife. And again, my husband and I have been married for about a year and a half now. Our 4 kids, and my hobbies include working out. I love to stay active. Softball, I've played for a very long time, adult leagues, recreational, competitive. Both my parents played with the Air Force, so I kind of grew up on a softball field. I love reading what I want to. I don't always get to read what I want to. I'm sure you all know how that goes. And love traveling, and absolutely go Chiefs. In my professional life, I am a Friends University graduate. I graduated with 3 bachelor's degrees in English education, Spanish education, and then Spanish culture and language. And my MGLM is my master's degree in global leadership and management. My teaching experience goes for almost 14 years. I started at Wellington High School teaching English for 4 years. I went to Blueston Middle School, High School, and I taught several different things there. I taught technology to both middle school, high school, and then I taught Spanish 1, Spanish 2, Spanish 3, and Spanish 4 to middle school and high school. At Wichita Southeast High School, I taught English again, and I was there for 7 years. And then I just finished 1 year of teaching English as well as English Comp 1 and Comp 2 at Junction City High School. My professional thoughts have a lot to do with Anita Archer. The whole concept of I do, you do, we do, and it encompasses everyone. So for me, education is a business. But in this business transaction, our students and our teachers are customers. And buy in is absolutely necessary, otherwise, we don't profit. Professionalism is a key factor. And then collaboration and trust will only be established through value. So when we go into government and education, we're obviously going to look at 3 different levels. We have our local government, our state government, and our federal government. And education is going to be in all 3 forms of those as well. So our overall government financial support, education is a state and local responsibility. Now, you're going to see less control from the federal government, and that comes from the mere fact that the Constitution itself does not say in it that the federal government is responsible, nor should it be involved in education at the state and local levels. So, due to the 10th Amendment, um, education is going to be more of a state and local responsibility. Education monies come from state, local, and private sources. Now, there are going to be some that are going to come from the federal level. However, 92% of monies come from non federal sources for elementary and secondary levels of education. 8% of the money for education is contributed from the Department of Education, which is federally funded, and other agencies that are also federally funded. What kinds of support do public schools receive at the local level? So, when we're looking at the local level within our communities and our districts, we're going to see financial support, we're going to see legal support, testing. There's going to be quite a bit of testing that goes on at the local level. Decisions made locally, and a lot of that is going to be done by the local school board, of course. Community support for education. You want a big community support program behind all of your education. Parents should absolutely be a big part of the support, and then representation through the Board of Education locally. What kinds of support do public schools receive at the state level? Again, you're going to have financial. You're going to have financial support. You're going to have legal support. Decisions that are made by the state. Now, we're going to see a little bit more of the regulations and the laws that come in at the state level simply because of Congress at the state level. Research and statistics are going to be a little bit bigger. Now, you're going to have some of that research and statistics at the local level, and absolutely there should be. I love data, I'm very data driven, and numbers mean a lot when you're looking at education. So, research and statistics are going to drive your state in a certain direction as far as curriculum is concerned and the philosophy of education overall. Testing's always been big. We know as educators, we are over tested, and the representation again and the Board of Education at the state level. What kinds of support do public schools receive at the federal level? Now, again, because the federal level isn't supposed to be as involved in the education programs within the local school districts, the most you're going to see is a lot of financial and a lot of legal regulations. There will be some testing somewhat at the federal level. Legislation is going to be key and very huge at the federal level. And that representation, again, but instead of coming through our Board of Education, that's going to come from the Department of Education. And then you're going to see, of course, all of our acronyms: FERPA, ESEA, HEA, ESSA, EEOC, and that's going to come, the EEOC is going to come through the 14th Amendment. That's going to be one of the biggest roles the federal level plays in education is that equal opportunity. Now, who's in charge at the various levels? Well, at the local level, we have the central office. And at our central office, they are going to be carrying out our mission and our vision. There's a lot of clerical that goes on. Curriculum is established through the central office. And there are going to be other central duties for the entire district. These are all mostly paid positions. The superintendent of the district, of course, works within the central office, and the superintendent is going to carry out that mission and vision for the entire district. There's going to be some legal things that the superintendent is going to have to do. Financial is big, of course, financial reports. Curriculum is decided through superintendent, assistant superintendent, and that's a lot of times directed to them or with them through the Board of Education. Statistical, you're going to look again at that data. The research and development, staffing is big. And you're going to want to build relationships. And the Board of Education, of course, has regulations for the superintendent and for the entire district as a whole. Superintendency, obviously, is a paid position. Building administrators. Now, our building administrators are always incredibly busy. They carry out the mission, the vision of their individual buildings as well as the district as a whole. And those missions and visions within the individual districts should bridge the gap between the buildings and the district as a whole so that they're all intertwined and accomplishing one big goal. Building administrators do go through some legal duties as well as financial. They have to have those reports due to the Board of Education and the superintendent. They're going to have staffing within their buildings. Curriculum, the curriculum that's given to them by the district and superintendent, that curriculum has to be driven out to the teachers in a certain manner so that it is carried out appropriately. Discipline is going to be a huge duty for building administrators. Testing is also big. Professional development for the teachers, because that's going to play a huge role within that curriculum. Building relationships is big, and of course, all daily duties of just running a school building, and all of these are paid positions. We then have our teachers. Of course, they are incredibly busy. We all know that we've been teachers. There's the daily teaching itself, which can be exhausting. Grades, following legal regulations, not just within the teaching aspects, but through our IEPs, through our special education programs. Building relationships is huge because they're building relationships not just with our students, but with each other teachers, administrators, district as a whole, Board of Education, community. Discipline. is going to happen within the classroom with those teachers, professional development so that they can drive themselves to better educate our kids through the curriculum that's given, and of course, the lesson planning. And these are all paid positions. Our parents are at the local level, and our parents have a uh, responsibility to nurture their children, and they have a huge responsibility for the basic education of their children. Parents need to build relationships with teachers, their kids, the communities, and communicate with the school. Of course, I, it's an unpaid volunteer position. Uh, they volunteered to be their parents. So, Board of Education. These duties are going to be to vote on educational issues, because that is their main objective, carry out the mission and the vision for the district. I think sometimes that gets lost with Board of Education members is that they too are one of those driving forces behind the mission and the vision of the entire district. Legal ramifications are part of the duties for the Board of Education. Of course, regulations and curriculum testing, and they really need to bridge that gap between the local and state levels of education, and they also have financial duties, of course. These are unpaid volunteer positions. Now, as I understand it, and there are some states at the state level Board of Education where they do allow for some sort of stipend up to $2,000 or $3,000 per board member per year. But as far as local Board of Educations go, this is a volunteer position to which they're voted into, and it is unpaid. At the state level, who is in charge at the state level? Well, of course, we have Congress. Congress needs to listen to the public voice. They vote on educational issues, and they create the laws for improvements in education. They also create the laws for the financial situation of these schools as well. They've developed the funding formula that enables the funding for the school districts and communicate with the state board of educations. The state congress, those are our paid positions. Our state board of education, well, the duties are to vote on educational issues. That's what they're there for. Carry out the mission and the vision, and those are going to be statewide. What do we want to accomplish as a state? Legal regulations, curriculum is pretty big because that's where we get our state standards, and we have to all come to an agreement as a state so that all of our districts are following the same standards statewide. Testing is huge at the state level, and they're going to bridge the gap between the local and the state. And of course, the State Board of Education has a lot of financial duties as well. And these are voted in positions. And like I said, for the most part, they are unpaid. But there are some states where their Board of Education members are allowed some sort of stipend for the year. At the federal level, we again have Congress. Congress should again listen to the public voice, vote on the educational issues as they come about, create laws for improvements in education. And that's also going to be not just for education itself, but also in accordance with the 14th Amendment and the EEOC laws. Financial duties, again, funding formulas, and that's not just at the state levels, but that funding formula is going to come at the federal level as well. How much funding is going to go towards education as a whole? And the reason that becomes incredibly important at the federal level is because we'll see here in just a bit that at the federal level, the funding and the finances are kind of a way to not necessarily control the states, but control the states. Communicate with the State Board of Education. These are paid positions, Congress at the federal level. Now, instead of having a Board of Education at the federal level, we have a Department of Education, which is under the federal government. And for the duties of the Department of Education, they also have a mission and a vision that they have to carry out. And that should all come together. We should see it as a tiered process from the very top through the very local bodies. There are legal ramifications, regulations, curriculum. Now, the curriculum cannot be necessarily driven through the federal government, but as we can see through the finances, the states can be swayed per se. Testing, financial, and laws, those are paid positions. within the Department of Education. Now, the Department of Education has an official mission, and it is to promote student achievement and preparation for global competitiveness by fostering educational excellence and ensuring equal access. And again, that equal access is a key part, but we're also going to see the financial as part of a key area as well, because the level with the most power and control of education is the state and federal level. Now, the reason I say state and federal level is the state has a lot of control through simply being the state level with Congress and laws and regulations that are created. Now, as far as having a lot of control within their buildings, the local level has more control within the district and the buildings themselves from a day to day standpoint. However, the federal level does have a vast amount of control through the financial coercion, but overall, the state has the most power and control. So if we look at our components, component 6.1 says to evaluate, develop, and implement management, communication, technology, school level governance, and operation systems that support each student's learning needs and promote the mission and vision of the school. If we're looking at each and every student and management, communication, we're looking at the local level of government, and this is going to be the level of government that has the most influence over the areas of component 6.1, simply because of that one on one development. We look at component 6.2, evaluate, develop, and advocate for a data informed and equitable resourcing plan that supports school improvement and student development. And we can see a couple of levels of government on this one. We can see both state and local levels of government having the most influence over the areas of this component. And the reason I say that is that when we look at data informed and equitable resourcing plans, we're looking at the state level, they're going to provide, of course, your equal opportunity because the higher we go in the levels of government, there's going to be more of the providing the EEOC regulations and laws. But data informed also is going to give us the ability to have statistics and research that's done at that more state level that gives us a bigger picture. Now, we want that data and resourcing plan at the local level as well because we do need to see the small picture of, a direct day-to-day plan as well. But having a bigger picture on a state level is also going to help within the local level. Component 6.3 reflectively evaluate, communicate about, and implement laws, rights, policies, and regulations to promote student and adult success and well being. This is going to be both the state and federal levels. Biggest reason is because of the implement laws, rights, and policies. And of course, we only write those laws at the state and federal levels. Our local ordinances and so forth are less going to be about the education in our districts, and we're going to get more of the laws that are implemented at the state and federal levels. That also is going to flow into the promoting student and adult success and well being. And that well being section is kind of a key way of indicating that 14th Amendment for equal opportunity. So the three areas of government and leadership work together to bridge gaps, make ties, and connect all the dots necessary to provide successful, free public educational opportunities for the well being of all students and adults. And one of the quotes that I love is at the heart of leadership is the leader's relationship with followers. People will entrust their hopes and dreams to a person only if they think the other is a reliable vessel. And I love that because it kind of shows the connection between, locally the trust that we have, and do we have that same trust in our state and federal governments from an educational perspective? And I think that if we look at the leadership that is at all of those levels, at the heart of of that leadership is the relationship and the relationships that are developed. Thank you very much.